Hello and welcome to yesterday's Airlines. As you can see, I have another new mould sample to investigate in this video, and this time around it is the Airbus A330-900NEO, courtesy of Aviation400. Obviously, I want to thank Aviation400 for sending me through this sample. It's not the first time that they've sent me a new sample mould, and in general, Aviation400 are an exciting manufacturer producing really high quality 400 scale models with some really novel features, most noticeably the beacon lights that appear on the top and the bottom of all their molds, something which has not been done by any of the other brands. Now, obviously, as you can see in the background, there are competing A330-900NEO molds available. We've got on the left this Phoenix version in the colours of CityLink, and on the right, jcwings Gemini have an A330-900 too. In this example is in the colours of Lion Air. So we'll be taking a look at both of those in comparison to the new sample from Aviation400, which, as you can see, is the unprinted version in the forefront there. Before we start the video, as always, subscribe to this channel, people. It's a good place for you to see and understand news about 400 scale models. And as you can hear, my new puppy Monty agrees. It's mainly because the cat's nearby. But also check out Facebook at @YesterdayAirlines and Instagram at @YesterdayAirlines, and obviously the website yesterdaysairlines.com, because that is where I post the hub, the core of the work that I do in relation to 400 scale models. But for now, let me go and rescue the cat from Monty, and then we'll get straight on to checking out the new mould sample. Okay, so briefly, before we actually take a closer look at this new mould, which you can see here up on the stand, it's probably worthwhile just saying, why the A330-900? Why is this the mould that Aviation400 have decided to create here? I think it's very much in fitting with what AV400 have been doing. They've been mainly producing modern wide-body molds that have got a large potential market, especially in Asia. So it's not surprising the 330-900 is coming up next. Obviously, I imagine that Airbus aren't thrilled by the sales numbers of the aircraft. I think they've sold around 300 or so, and about 80 or so have been delivered so far. Probably not where they were hoping their sales would be, but at the same time, they've had the pandemic to deal with, and they've been pumping out A330 CEOs for ages, and so a good chunk of the A330 fleet is not very old. So it's not too surprising that AV400 have gone here, even though the sales aren't as good as they might be. The reality is there are going to be lots of these aircraft made in coming years, and there are lots of new airlines which are making them. And I can't seem to get away from my pets today, because as you probably just see, that's Nebulosa. And he, for some reason, has decided that now is the time to jump on the table, mainly probably because Monty's around. Anyway, let me finish, Nebs, you monster. Okay. The A330-900 in service. Interestingly, Delta and TAP are the biggest operators by some margin, but there is quite a large diversity of models, of airline operators. Mostly smaller airlines that operate 2 or 3. So you've got quite an interesting range of airlines like Air Senegal, Air Mauritius, that are operating this type. It has led to quite an interesting release set, and Phoenix and jcwings have both done quite well in catering to all the models that have been released. But it's clear that there will be lots more A330-900s in the future. So I think it's a safe bet that Aviation400 here are going to make decent money selling this mold, especially if it competes well with the Phoenix and JC versions, which is what we will find out now. Is this mold up to the standards of the Phoenix and JC version? Okay, so the first stop in working out whether the new AV400 mold is good is to take a look at it in comparison to the existing molds. And as I said, I've got this Phoenix version here with CityLink colours. I've got the jcwings version with Lion Air colours. And both of them from distance look really nice. And I haven't got dramatic issues with them from range at all. But when you get up and close and personal with these molds, then the differences start to appear. And if we look at the Phoenix version first, then There are some really nice aspects to it. Phoenix have always had a good A330-900 mould, A330 mould. But this A330-900 typically just leverages off what they've done already, and they haven't put the effort in, I think, that they should have done to make it a proper Neo, or a really good Neo. So I'm liking the nose because they've always had a good nose, but the undercarriage here has not been changed. This gear door is still way too large, and the main gear is still, a bit Phoenixy, isn't it? A bit clumsy. Overall, the fuselage itself isn't too bad, and I variably quite like the tail unit, and at least they've got a nice free rudder on this and a better tail than they have on lots of their molds. The fuselage is good, and even the aerials are good as well, and they've put a lot of effort in there, as Phoenix do tend to, and you can see they've got 4 on the bottom here and 3 on the top, which is quite nice. Where I think this mold falls down primarily is in the wings. These flap track fairings are just the wrong shape. They should be squared off, and if you take a look in comparison to the flap track fairings on this version, the jcwings version, you see they're a lot shorter, and when you look at them from side on here, then on this version they are long and spiky, and on the JC version they're chunky and square, which is correct. So Phoenix have just not got that right at all. Also, the shape here of this winglet is just way out there. It's not tall enough, it's not big enough, and it's just completely the wrong shape. I don't really know how Phoenix have made such a mistake there. So overall, it's an okay mold, but when you look at it in detail, across the board pretty much, and compare it to the jcwings mold, it is inferior. I can't say I'm loving these fan blades either. Phoenix tend to, when they have these movable fan blades, kind of make the blades a bit chunky and thick. But that's the Phoenix mold. It's okay, it's not great. I tend to try and avoid it nowadays. The jcwings version is much better. They've got a much better A330neo than they do an A330ceo, in my opinion. The nose area is really nice. They've got a much better nose gear area and nose gear door than Phoenix have. The rest of the fuselage is excellent. They've got some really nice detailing, as you'd expect. They've got the proper flap track fairings. And when you look at the shape of the winglets, the sharklets, it's much better. They curve in here as they should, and then the size and shape of those is taller and more accurate. So the wing is much nicer. I also do like the fan blades on the JC version too. There are more of them, more correct, and they just look better. The big issue that you do get with this mold, however, is the angle of the wings. It's a little hard to see maybe without comparing it to something else, but you tend to see that the wings are quite high, and if you compare it directly to the Phoenix version, you'll see that difference is quite obvious. They're much taller to the extent you can actually put them over the top of the Phoenix one, and this is a case where Phoenix having lower wings actually is more accurate. So when it comes to these two molds, they're both decent, but I personally am not buying the Phoenix one because of the issues I mentioned with the wings. And you could argue that this jcwings version wing issue is also not great. So there's plenty of room for a mold which does not have those problems. So that brings us on to the Aviation400 mold sample here, and how does it compare to the real thing, and how does it compare to those existing molds? If I just give it a general move around here, you can see it's looking nice. There's nothing that really stands out immediately as being incorrect. And the form of the A330 is good. I'm just going to take it off the stand. This sample actually has a tiny stand hole, and it's actually quite difficult to get the model onto the stand. But if I take it off the stand and look a bit more closely, I'll just hold it like so. You can see that the form of the nose is good. Let's see if I can get that to focus a bit better. There we go. It's got quite a nice nose, and I've seen some of the CAD drawings that they've used to get this nose correct. It's quite hard to tell what it will look like without the cockpit windows printed on it, but I think that it is broadly accurate. It's certainly better than on the A330ceo. You can see also that they've molded in this forward hump here on the roofline, which is nice. Obviously, they'll have the nav beacons too. Moving across to the engines, and these are looking really nice. They've got this really complex rear portion of the engine pylon, really nicely created here. And this is another issue on the Phoenix mold, which has a very, very poor engine pylon in this space. It doesn't look at all accurate. This one's looking really good. And the pylons across the wing here, they're looking nice as well, and they're hanging the engines nice and high. And if we look at the engines from the front, then these are looking really good. The number and the size of the fan blades looks accurate. Obviously, these guys are going to spin. Let me just confirm that for you with a pin. Yep, you can see they spin quite comfortably. The only issue with the fan blades is that they're oriented the wrong way. So they should be, the fans here, the blades here, when you look at them, they're just curving clockwise here, a kind of clockwise-y curve, and they should be curving the other way. So I've already mentioned that to Aviation400, and they have confirmed that they will be changing that, so that's not a big problem. Otherwise, the engines are looking really good. Moving on to the wings, and these also look excellent. You can see that these flat track fairings are short. You can see that when we look at them from the side, that they're chunky and square, and that's perfect. They look really nice. And again, if we move out to the outside of the wing and we're looking at the sharklets, let me just try, here we go. You can see that the shape of these is really nicely defined. It's not just a case of them going straight up from the wing into the sharklet. You've got this curve, and then you've got the second curve, and they're nice and pointed. They are much, much, much better than what has been produced by Phoenix, which is completely inaccurate. And I think that they are marginally better than what has been made by jcwings in terms of the sharpness of the angle and curve there. So I'm really liking the wings and the sharklets. I think they look exceptional, really good quality. Moving across to the rear of the airplane, and again, I don't really have any major concerns here. The tail is looking very nice. You've got this very tall rudder, goes right to the top of the tail. You've got the horizontal stabs, look good as well. Nice shape, really good. And across, if we look under the bottom and look at the body, you can see there's plenty of detailing going on here. So this is looking like a very nice mold. Now, the one area I haven't really discussed so far is the undercarriage. And as I understand it, the undercarriage that's on this sample is the undercarriage of their A330-900NEO Mould. And that does bother me a little bit because I'm not an enormous fan of that undercarriage. I do think it is a little bit short, certainly short in comparison to what JC have done with their A330neo. And if you compare the two together, you can see this one sits ever so slightly lower. I really like the undercarriage on the JC version, and I think that this undercarriage is not quite as good. I think it's a bit short, as I say. It's not the only problem I have with the nose gear. If we look at it in close up, this process here should be slightly lower down the leg, and I'm not loving, I have to say, the tyre hub, which I think is perhaps a little bit small, and also being silver the wrong colour. Moving to the main gear, and here again, I'm not loving this. I think that again, it's not quite correct. If you look at the main gear of the JC version, you can see that the main gear doors are sharp and the angle's quite tight when it comes down. And on this one, it's really not as good. So I think that the angles that are being used here for the main gear doors, both here and certainly in this lower boundary, are not correct, and the door isn't good. Also, I'd say that these main gears do not pivot or rotate, and there's kind of this gap in between, which is a bit featureless. I also think the tyres could, again, perhaps be slightly larger in this case, and I do think it looks better on this version. Having said that, again, Aviation400 have said to me that they will be changing the landing gear. So this landing gear on this sample is not final and therefore not something to really get worked up about. Even with this landing gear, the mold still looks really nice and I don't have dramatic concerns about it. I've already done a quite detailed scoring at the website and this mold has done very nicely. There we go, get it to focus. It's performed very well. It certainly beat the Phoenix for the reasons that I've talked about. The engine pylon shape, the engine fan blades, the wing flat track fairings and the sharklets, and as well as actually the nose gear door. All of those things are superior on this version. It does not have the same kind of wing height problems that the JC has. If we put this sample down and we get the JC version out, you can see that the JC sits substantially taller. Again, you can put the wing over the top of it here. So it's got a better wing angle than the jcwings version manages, which for me makes this AV400 version, if they can put new undercarriage on it, it makes it the leader in the scale, in my opinion. So it'll be really interesting to see what versions AV400 produce first. I get the feeling that Virgin's going to be up quite quickly because, as everyone probably is aware, Virgin have recently rolled out their first A330neo. It's called Billie Holiday. It looks really nice. So I would have thought the Virgin will be an early release, but it would also be good to get some Delta examples and Azul and other airlines that have not been released outside of individuals by Phoenix or Gemini. Okay, well, hopefully this has given you a good idea about what it is Aviation400 are doing with their A330neo and how good it is looking and the potential that exists for it in comparison to the existing jcwings and Phoenixmodels, both of which are fine, but I much prefer the jcwings version. This version, however, I do think is going to have the edge, especially when it comes to the addition of the trademark items that Aviation400 produces, such as the navigation beacons. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you're looking forward to seeing some A330neos from Aviation400. But that's it for this video. I'll see you next time.